Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a few minutes for everyone to get into the Zoom meeting, and then we'll kick it off. Wait one more second, and then we can start the meeting. Alrighty, let's get this started. All right, everyone. Welcome to the third community meeting for the 217 Somerville Ave Park. I'm joined by the team Crowley Cottrell. Here we have Naomi, Leah, and Rachel. Leah, if you wouldn't mind sharing the slide presentation.
Please hold, working on that. Ready momentarily.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Perfect. So welcome everyone to the third community meeting for the 217 Somerville Ave Pocket Park. My name is John Bronkamp, and I'm with the Public Space and Urban Forestry Department. Next slide, please. Actually, another slide. Perfect. Introductions. Again, I'm John Bronkamp. I am from the Public Space and Urban Forestry Department. I also wanted to acknowledge Ward 2 Councillor JT Scott, who wasn't able to attend this meeting because he has a city council meeting, but he just wanted to express his excitement for this project and wanted to let people know that he is always available to talk about this project or anything else in his ward. Next slide, please. You can always stay connected to us and this project. There's multiple ways that you can stay connected. The first is by going to our Summer Voice website, where you'll find constant updates of the design process, new information and whatnot. You can find that website by going to somervillema.gov/217 Somerville Ave, or just scanning this QR code. We also post more information on our parks Instagram page, which is Somerville Parks. And then I'm always available for questions or comments. And my email is below at jbronenkant@somervillema.gov. Next slide, please. I also wanted to give a little plug for our open space and recreation plan survey. So every 7 years, we need to rewrite our open space and recreation plan, and one of the tasks in this plan is to speak with the public about how you like your open space and what you would like improved and what additional items you might like. So you can scan this QR code or go to the link below and fill out this survey. You'll be hearing more about this survey over the next coming months as we're trying to solicit some input. Next slide, please. So our agenda for tonight, I just kind of went over the introductions. I'll then go over the project timeline. We'll then hand it over to the designers to do their presentation and then allow for some time for discussion after the presentation. Next slide, please. Just a few tutorials about how to use Zoom. So please use the raise hand feature under the reaction tab, which should be at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions or comments, you can also use the chat feature. I will ask that you save all questions and comments for after the presentation. Next slide, please. And then just some rules for engagement for this meeting. We are all learning. Please be respectful and assume the best intentions always. All members get to speak without debate, reaction, or response. Step up or step back. Take note of how often you speak, or consider stepping forward more often or giving more time for others to speak. Contribute and be present. Stay on point and on time, and acknowledge that there are other viewpoints that, for a number of reasons, are not necessarily represented here. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to go over the project timeline. So we're currently in the community design process, which started in August and is running through the fall. Then we will move into the design development. This is where the designers will take our conceptual design and push it through to a full set of documents that a contractor can use to construct the site. Then we'll put the project out to bid in late winter of 2024 with an anticipated start of construction in the spring or summer of 2024. And then we hope to have the park open by summer of 2025. Next slide, please. So again, just a little history about the site. So it used to be a former American Legion post. Before that, it was a Greek Orthodox church. In 2018, the city purchased the property located on the eastern part of Union Square. In 2018, Somerville Ave began reconstruction, and that included new trees, new road diets, permeable paving, a whole slew of wonderful infrastructure improvements. In 2019, the CPA, the Community Preservation Act, granted us funds for the design, but it was delayed due to the pandemic. And then once the site is open, 217 Somerville Ave will add 0.15 acres of open space. Next slide, please. So this is just an image that I love to use to kind of explain the broader context of this site and to remember that although this is a small space, it's kind of a keystone space in these larger open spaces and kind of create a place of rest along these corridors. There's also potential civic space that might come online through development that we need to be mindful of, so we're not replicating similar products and features and whatnot. Next slide, please. Oh, and I think this is where I hand it off to the designers.
Great, thanks, John. Hopefully many of you have been here before and that this is a review, but I'll go through this quickly. I'm Naomi Cottrell, principal at Crowley Cottrell Landscape Architecture. We've been working here in Somerville on a couple of parks, most recently finishing up the construction documents and starting construction on the Junction Park elsewhere in Somerville. And we're just excited to continue working with y'all. So I'll hand it over to our senior associate, Leah, who's been the lead designer on this project. And she's going to go through history of how we got where we got as a review for all of us. So take it away, Leah.
You. So we have been engaged in a pretty robust community listening process. It incorporated 2 previous community meetings, remote meetings in the same format that we have tonight. It also included 3 on-site listening sessions in October. And so we've had a lot of opportunity to engage with residents and neighbors about what they're looking for in the park. Each of the community meetings has had a different goal. The goal of tonight's meeting is to start to define what this park will be like in terms of materiality and spaces. So what will it look and feel like? We hope you'll walk away with a better sense of that today. We at 217 Somerville Ave design project share the Somerville open space goals, which are to expand open space in the East Union Square neighborhood, to program the space to address open space needs of the surrounding community, increase tree canopy, manage stormwater using green infrastructure. And then for today's agenda, we'll be reviewing your input, sharing the park design, talking about materials and elements. This is what this is a plan illustration of the site today. So it's asphalt and gravel surrounded by chain link fence. There are invasive plants to the north. And as John described, the new Somerville streetscape to the south. So just recapping our process, in the first meeting, we asked you to respond to us about what you were looking for in the park, and we provided these 3 continua. We talked about what parks for people and parks for plants, and where along that continuum you'd like this park to be, not that it's either or. We talked about whether the park might be outwardly focused, more like an urban plaza, or inwardly focused, more like a neighborhood oasis. And we talked about the level of activity. Would you like this to be active, highly programmed with recreation, play yards, courts, etc., or more passive? And so through those forms of engagement that I mentioned previously, the meeting, the listening sessions, and also through engagement with the Summer Voice site and email, we've heard from a lot of you, which is fantastic. And this is kind of our analysis of what we've heard in terms of those 3 continua. So in terms of a park for people and a park for plants, there was, I would say we were more tending toward a park for people, but of course plants are very important, and that was clear for a lot of people. Inward versus outward focus, we're kind of in the middle, but maybe more of an outward focus, so engaging the street. And then active and passive, this was very clear that there was a strong interest in it being a passive park. In terms of specific concerns that we heard, I'm just going to actually read through these quickly because they each represent, I think, important issues for the neighborhood. Safety is a primary concern. So we talked about design solutions for the park, which would be maintaining clear sight lines into and out of the park, creating a buffer between the streets and the park, integrating lighting, but it would be dark sky lighting and it wouldn't go spread into abutter residences, and providing multiple entries and exits to each of the spaces. Trash and maintenance has been a big concern. So we are providing 2 additional Big Belly, which is the brand of a combined trash and recycling containers at the 2 entrances to the park. We'll, in terms of maintenance, using low maintenance plants, organizing plants so that they're easy to take care of, using resilient materials and details, and creating a raised edge around the park so that trash from the streets is less likely to be blown into the spaces of the park. In terms of noise, we've designed the park to limit the size of gathering areas, designing primarily passive use spaces. Again, a planted buffer, but this is about mitigating noise, and then strategic planting as well for mitigating noise, especially to the abutters and adjacencies on Rossmore. And then accessibility, and we heard a lot about this, and we are starting to understand more about the occupants of the neighborhood. So making every usable space accessible and really inviting to all, providing accessible furnishings and site elements. So we know that the neighborhood is filled with people of all ages and abilities, and we really want to create a space for everyone. Priorities, inclusivity was kind of the catch-all, I think, in terms of the people, providing activities that would really appeal to people of all types, importance that there would be plants, places to socialize and engage with neighbors. Shade was very important, creating pollinator habitat. And what we learned, I think what John described, especially from the listening sessions, was that the space can quite easily become a kind of neighborhood gathering space, a backyard for many folks who in the neighborhood who don't have backyards to socialize in. At the last meeting, our second meeting, we presented 2 concept plans. With the one on the left, we called the living room, on the right, the meander. And we heard a resounding response, which is a preference for the meander amongst the majority of those who engaged. There were some people who liked both schemes equally, but reasons for, I would say, responses to this scheme were appreciation of varied planting, appreciation of smaller spaces that had different characteristics in each of the spaces, more variety of activities for more people, integration of planting and paving, preferred the entry locations in this scheme. And there was a request. So the scheme, I should just say briefly, is a series of rooms, starting with a kind of expanded streetscape. And then in this scheme, we had a kind of dining room, a lounge area, and a playroom in the back that were linked with this meandering path, and then a secondary path of steps. So the meandering path was fully accessible, and as secondary circulation, we had steps. So there were some concerns in this scheme about the large openings onto the Rossmore sidewalk, and concern about noise and spillover from the sports bar across the street. This, among other concerns, are things that we have addressed in our schematic design, which we're presenting today. So with that, I think I'll hand back to you, Naomi. You can walk us through the design.
Great, thank you. We like to break down designs in plan view so that people can really understand what all of the things are that we're showing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through this plan in layers so that we can look at different topics. So as Leah just discussed, this is the new revised version of the meander scheme that is responding to things that we heard last time. But the big takeaway is that we do have these 3 rooms, and I'll just go right through. So why don't you go to the next slide. So one of the things that we shifted from the last time was to really think about how the idea of these 3 rooms, or these 3 backyard spaces would be programmed, and thinking about what kind of programs were appropriate where. So we have expanded and made larger front section that is closer to Somerville Ave, and its primary focus is having a little bit more active space in the front porch. I'm not talking about the expanded street yet. So the front porch looking out over Somerville Ave. So to give you a little bit of a lifted prospect to look out, and it would be a louder area. So that's where we are putting in some more play-like elements. The second room being the dining room, so offering different types of flexible and fixed dining seating opportunities. And we'll look at the scale of that. And then lastly, we have a quieter space in the back that we're calling the living room that will have more lounge type seating and have things like chess tables and game tables such that you might sit and stay for a little bit and hang out with your neighbors. One of the big differences in this scheme to anything that we were showing you prior is that we've actually moved the park in a little bit off from Rossmore as a way to give another layer of buffer to the neighbors across the street on Rossmore. And we've added in a tree lawn and a series of 4 trees. Again, this then moves the sidewalk slightly in and gives you that opportunity for a little bit more of a filtered buffer for noise and for viewing. And also provides the opportunity for more communal shade on the sidewalk and on the paving. And then we still have the idea on the corner here of that open corner plaza, just a place that you might stop for a couple minutes, and we'll get into a little bit more on that. So go ahead. This slide is just isolating and showing you the grading. This may be a little bit technical for folks, but we do want to talk a little bit about what we're doing. Each one of these rooms is at a slightly different height. And we are doing this so that they are connected visually and our sightlines are open. However, it does give us the opportunity to make each space feel a little bit special. So, you know, the other part of this is technical for us to make sure that all of the paths are at accessible slopes, even though we are taking what seems like a relatively flat area and having some grade change. So some stepping up between what we're calling the front porch and the dining, and then stepping back down to what we're calling the living room in the back. We'll go ahead and so we've we have heard from the community that native plants are important, but also acknowledging that maintenance is really critical. So while we haven't detailed all of the plants at this point, our intention is to have a shrub border along the west and the north side of the property to have interest and to provide some screening for the neighbors. I will add that as an addition to this version of the plan, we're also putting in a privacy screen, a privacy fence along that property line. So it would be a wood fence that gives complete separation from the park and the neighbors to both the west and the north. And then the rest of these areas that are shown in green would be native ornamental grasses, ground covers, and lower growing evergreen and flowering shrubs to give some textural and seasonal interest, but to again be very clear to make sure that our sight lines stay open between the different rooms. Go ahead. The tree planting is similar to last time. I think that some of the things that we want to talk about is that we did add in this deciduous line of deciduous canopy trees on Rossmore, in the tree lawn. So we think that's very beneficial to the neighborhood in general. We have added in a flowering understory tree that is parallel to Rossmore inside the park. Again, to give a little bit more of a buffer, a noise barrier, a filtering to the neighbors. And then we have our series of 3 different lines of, again, deciduous canopy trees. And those are located on the south side of each of these rooms, so that the rooms are all shaded during the day in the summer. Go ahead. And we wanted to point out furnishings as an element. We want to make sure that we're not, over furnishing the area, but we do want to provide for flexibility and places to gather. So you'll notice that we have a couple of backed bench seat toppers. So we do have some seat walls in here that provide both retaining for the stepping of the park, but providing some opportunities for backed seating for folks that really need to have back support. In the front porch area, we are showing a more casual Adirondack chair being used in here, like you might have on your front porch. And then the circles, the blue circles that are dotted through here, the larger ones are sculptural elements that are, we think, playful and of interest. And then the smaller circles are in-ground mist elements for summer water play. In the next room, stepping up to the next room, this is the dining room. And so what we're providing here is a communal picnic table that has both traditional bench seating as well as breaks within the bench seating for mobility devices to be able to pull up and use the table with other neighbors. And then we'll be providing in here also some fixed tables as well as movable tables. So you can imagine there could be a couple of different groups that are eating, whether they're eating together at a communal table or separately at the smaller tables. And then lastly, in the back is the living room. And we have the game tables and movable tables in this area as well. And then we provided some lounging sets. So those sets are sort of oversized Adirondacks with say a coffee table in between, or a side table. This is just, again, to furnish this like a living room so that it can be a place to come and say, read a book, meet with your neighbors and talk, have a little meeting in a very casual and friendly way. Go ahead. We took a first pass at a lighting study, which I do want to say is a first pass. We will be following rules of the dark night sky compliant selections for both pole lights and bollard lights. But we expect that there will be 4 different types of lighting within the park. So the lighting that is called out as L1 is a pedestrian pole light, which is a typical 10, 12-foot pole that will light each of the rooms. And right now within the plan, we will be studying this further with a lighting designer, but right now we have it centered on each of the spaces so that the light casts evenly throughout the space. And then to the left, where we have the set of stairs that goes up along the west side of the park, we are adding in another element of a low bollard light so that it really marks this as a passageway and keeps it quite safe. And then also using that same bollard to sort of skip through and mark the bottoms and the tops of each of the ramps. We'll say that one of the things that we realized in doing this sketch, and it's something that we are going to revise, is the light that's the closest to the neighbor to the north is showing light spilling over the property line. And the way in which we will remedy that happening is by putting shields and baffles on the light itself in order to have it cut off on the backside. So we are aware, and doing drawings like this shows us what we're going to need to do. So again, when we take this to a lighting designer, we will do the calculations to cut the light off at the property line. Go ahead. And I think, is this the last one, Leah, for me? I think, so we do want to just talk a little bit about gates and fences. We heard pretty clearly that the adjacent residential neighbors would like some sort of separation. So we are providing in the scheme a privacy fence that would be 6 feet tall, that would be solid so that it's both a noise screen and a visual screen. We are also acknowledging that we have some playful elements within the room that we're calling the front porch. So we are going to provide some kind of low enclosure along Somerville Ave, so that we can secure the site for children that might be playing in that space, to keep that being a safe connection. We don't have that designed yet, but that is part of what we will do moving forward. Next. Oh, okay. So these are, we did some sketches like this for last time, just to show you the feeling of what the park would look like from the outside. So this is a view taken sort of from, say, a second-story window across Somerville Ave. So you're seeing the layering of the spaces within the park, with the front porch in the front, and then the set of stairs that goes up then to the highest point, which is the dining room, and then going back down the back to what would be the living room. You can go to the next slide. Again, to show you some scale on this, and sort of wanted to just show you this revision. I mean, some of the things that are in this revision that are different are the stairs. And so really our main entry, we are thinking, is this wider set of stairs. And this first path that's cut in on this side of Somerville Ave, that this really would be the main approach, and being the largest openings, with the secondary being off Rossmore. So why don't you go to the next slide? This is the same viewpoint that we took this perspective from last time. It is a view looking from, say, where you might be parking your car on Rossmore, looking out towards Somerville Ave. But this is showing where we have created just two small openings to the park. So here being the sort of threshold between going up to go to what would be the dining room area, and back to the living room area. And then further down the sidewalk, we have the small set of stairs to lead you into the front porch. So wanting to really show you that on Rossmore, we are trying to limit the amount of openings and invitation into the park. You can go ahead to the next, just to show some folks and where they might be standing in relationship to each other. So we are, when you're in this what we're calling the dining room area, you are elevated off the street a bit. So again, trying to show we have very clear sight lines in and out of the park, and the elevating the levels actually helps with that, so that you can really see what's going on the inside. Go ahead. I think this is where I pass it off to you, Leah. Leah's going to walk you through a little bit more detail into what goes on in each one of the spaces.
Great. So I'm going to walk through a series of drawings that is another kind of drawing convention that we use to try to describe spaces in the design phases. And so these are called section elevations, where it's as though we were taking a slice through the park, and we're showing vertical and horizontal spatial relationships among the components. So in this slice, we've taken it from Somerville Ave sidewalk, which is what you're seeing here on the right, and we've cut all the way back to the adjacent abutter, which is what you're seeing back here with the privacy fence. And so what you can glean from this drawing is the relationship among the rooms. So we have the expanded streetscape with the seat wall on what is the existing Somerville Ave sidewalk and furnishing zone and bike path. And then we have our kind of planted buffer with some flowering understory trees. This is cut through that sloping path that takes you up to the front porch. So you can see the relationship of kind of front porch out to Somerville Ave. And this is over here in this portion of the plan. You see the misting jet and drinking fountain, another seat wall. This is these are the pole lights Then moving to the next path that's sloping up to get to the dining room, which is the highest point of the site. The dining room is kind of the largest of the rooms, and then sloping back down to the living room. So the living room has the privacy fence as well as planted buffer, and you can get a sense of the canopy trees shading each of these rooms. You can also kind of see that there's clear sight lines really from the street all the way to the back of the property. So we've done some enlarged plans of the different areas. And then we'll look at those sections as well. But this is the expanded streetscape right on that corner of Somerville and Rossmore. So we'll take a slice through a new furnishing zone with bike racks, new sidewalk, 6-foot sidewalk, new brick plaza, and you'll see the seat wall, and then back to the existing sidewalk. So Rossmore Ave, this is the bioinfiltration planter that's there today. We're not changing that. We're simply creating a new furnishing zone for more bike parking. Behind that is where the street trees will be planted, new sidewalk, new brick plaza, and this is the seat wall with those backed benches so that people have some back support. The pink represents the flowering understory trees, and the various tones of green represent deciduous canopy trees, so some fall color and losing their leaves in the winter to keep the areas warmer in winter. And you can start to see an idea about planting, low planting in those planting areas. What some of those elements might be like. So this is that seat wall, backed bench, just a idea about the proportions of seat walls so that they're comfortable, bike parking, and some familiar street furnishing, the big belly trash cans, and then ideas about street tree planting, so the deciduous canopy trees here, and then the flowering trees, which would be along Rossmore as well, and then a sense of a varied pollinator planting in a raised planter off of the sidewalk. So all of the pink lines are represent the three subsequent drawings I'll talk through. Section A is going to take a cut through this front porch so that you can see all of the kind of different elements of it. And then sections B and C are cut north-south, so you understand the relationship to Somerville Ave, which is on the south. So this is that first one. So we're getting kind of the length of the room here, starting at Rossmore, so Rossmore Ave, understanding this grade relationship. So because of the level of the sidewalk, we're sloping up with our planting to a seat wall. And then this is the front porch with drinking fountain. You can see some mist, the backed benches, Adirondack, sculptural elements. So kind of a series of different kinds of elements to interact with and places to sit and be. Privacy fence all the way on the west, adjacent to the abutting property, along with some flowering shrub planting. And then this section is cut through going north-south, so cutting to Somerville Ave. So all of the lighter colored drawing represents existing conditions. This is the new streetscape, but here is the property line, and we have our new seat wall planting, and then this is a cut through that kind of misting area in the front porch, along with the seating. Oops, I somehow missed. Then this section is cut through that series of steps that take you from Somerville Ave, from room to room. So Somerville Ave here, moving up to the front porch, and then you can see the stairs continue, and on the left would be the dining room. We looked at this already. So these are some images of those elements. So conceptually, sculptural, when we say sculptural elements, we're thinking about tactile things that can be engaged with by people who have limited mobility. So we're going to, I think, have a lot of fun looking into what precisely those things will be, but these are just some ideas. And then the mist element, this is in Kenny Park in Davis Square. They're basically like spray pop-up heads that come out of the ground and shed. The ones we're thinking of would spray mist during the summer months, and in the winter months they disappear. So it allows for the space to be rather flexible in terms of moving furniture, using the space in other ways. On the bottom, drinking fountain bottle filler, the Adirondacks, which might provide an opportunity for some color in the furniture, and then the backed bench seat wall toppers. Moving to the highest room, which is the dining room, and looking through kind of the full expanse of that onto between cutting from the abutter property to Rossmore Ave. So starting with Rossmore on the right, you see that new tree lawn with shade trees on Rossmore. The seat wall here, which is, this is the highest point of the seat wall. And then the large community picnic table, some pole lights, and then this is the gaming table. You can see beyond that there's planting associated with between the two rooms, the dining and then the next room, which is the living room. And then we have the privacy fence and some buffer planting, shrub planting as well. Images of those elements. So game table would be a fixed table with a like a chessboard topper. Community picnic table would be something possibly similar to this, but elongated and with accessible spots, as Naomi described. Some movable cafe furniture that's easy and light to move around. Again, the seat wall. And then we have an idea which you've seen in the yellow elements in the plan, which is an idea about making a kind of carpet or rug using porous pavers. So this is double duty. It really defines the space, but also it gives us a place to store stormwater and runoff below these pavers. So then looking at the living room, here you're seeing that yellow representing that kind of paving I was just talking about. Rossmore again on the right, cutting all the way through with the abutter property on the left. So Rossmore on the right. In the distance, there's a new Big Belly seat wall, and then in the room you have fixed game table, as well as that movable cafe table, and this is the kind of lounge furnishing. And you can see there's kind of a wall of green in front of the wooden fence that would be beyond. So wood fence would wrap the north side and the west. Images of those elements: lounge seating, movable furniture, game table, the kind of paving rug, and then we're thinking about flowering, shrub planting for in front of that privacy fence. Some fun elements that we're hoping to incorporate in various places are elements that reflect the architecture of a home. So because this space we're envisioning as really a domestic scale, we like the idea of using doorways and window frames, both as kind of selfie moments, but also ways to sort of define thresholds between the rooms. So back to the overall plan with our series of rooms. And we'd like to pause here and open up the conversation to any comments or questions from all of you. I think John will be the MC.
Yes, so please, again, you can use the chat feature or the raise hand feature, and I will call on you and unmute you, and you can speak. I think while I'm waiting for comments or hands to be raised, I was wondering if you could go back to the tree plan and describe more about the shade of that and how you're placing them on the southern side to cast shade on the furnishings within each of those spaces. And again, that raise hand feature is along the bottom bar, and the chat feature is another option within that bar. Naomi, you're muted. Sorry.
I was just telling Leah that she was muted and that we couldn't see your screen and you're muted.
I turned the screen off so that you wouldn't be dizzy while I was trying to find the diagram. So let me share now that I've found it. Hopefully that works.
Yep.
Okay. So the question that John asked was to talk through the decision of tree placement. So the site, so here's our little north arrow. So north is in this direction, which means southern exposure is on this side of the park, which means that in the summer and the hottest months, the sun is primarily going to be moving through the kind of south, east to west. And what that means in terms of tree placement is that the best place to put your shade trees in order to provide that afternoon shade in the summer is to the south of the site. So each of these rooms is given a series of shade trees located to the south. And in addition, what these trees on the in the front porch area do is once they grow and expand, they will also shade Somerville Ave, which is nice because they'll be then the existing street trees that were just planted as well as these trees. So you'll get shade on both sides of the sidewalk. On Rossmore Ave, these trees are planted in that new tree lawn. And so those will shade both the sidewalk and the parking spaces and the asphalt of that road. So we know in the urban heat island effect, asphalt gets really hot and re-radiates heat. So any kind of shade we can cast on the road and the parking is going to be great for cooling overall temperatures, ambient temperatures. And then the flowering understory trees adds kind of an additional layer of shade.
Wonderful. Thank you for that clarification. So I'm starting to see a few comments come in. We got 2 comments and then I'll go to the raised hands. So Courtney asked, will the park be open at night or dawn to dusk? The park will be closed at night as all City of Somerville parks are closed at night. The next question is from Mike, and he asks, would the Big Belly trash cans on Rossmore Street not be better placed at the street corner at Rossmore in Somerville? It seems like this is an inviting space for eating, and it would be better located in that spot. That might be a better option. I believe we kind of went with the Big Belly in that corner because it was an entrance and exit to the site. These trash cans are very flexible at this point, and we want to just make sure that they're placed in the most strategic spot to deal with the trash and the concerns about rodents. All right, and then see one hand raised. So Philip, you should be allowed to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. I vote.
Well, thank you everyone for putting this presentation together. This is all looking great. A lot of my concerns have been addressed. Still have a few more questions and more concerns, of course. The one that we just talked about, trash barrels. I see one where Mike stated, and then there's another one over on the front on Somerville Ave. But I don't see any inside the park, inside of these areas where people are gonna congregate. So they can throw their trash out there immediately versus taking their trash with them.
Yeah, I'll jump in and answer that. Because we want to, because it is a small space, we don't want to carve it up for vehicular access. And John, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in our past projects for the city of Somerville, if we were to put a trash can on the interior, it would require a driving lane to get to it. So the strategy that we're taking here is to have them on the exits, so that as people leave, they do bring their trash with them.
Yes, that's exactly the concern, is that DPW has to unload all these trash cans every day, and putting them in strategic places where they'll receive the most trash, but also be easily accessible by DPW to empty daily, was kind of one of the main concerns for why we place them in the locations they are right now.
I personally think you should add, another one over by the Rossmore Somerville Ave area.
Mm-hmm.
In that area right there, especially a lot of people just walking by, coming from Target and things of that nature that are gonna want to throw trash out.
Right. Yeah.
Just my thought on that, and then I like the idea of the privacy fence. That's good, and it looks like you guys did set it back off a little bit. Am I correct?
You mean off of the property line?
Yeah.
We have a curb at the property line, and then, yeah, the fence is set behind that. So yes,
You're gonna put a curb in along the entire property line on the north and west side?
not on the north side, just on the west side.
What kind of a curb? Like a straight type of a curb?
We haven't gotten into the precise materials yet, but there is a curb. Is there not a curb? There isn't a curb, I believe, existing right there for some of the length today.
Yeah, that was some brick that we put in just to stop debris and whatever would come from underneath the fence onto our walkway and property. Is what we put there when we did the walkway.
And the curb's main goal is to kind of alleviate some of that grade issue. So this will kind of reduce the
I
amount
was
of
just getting
slopes,
to that.
reducing the concern of erosion, those type of issues.
Yeah, that was my next question, is you guys have these raised areas here. What the grade is gonna be like and what's gonna stop all of that from washing onto my walkway? Like,
Yeah, I'll jump in on this too. We are going to grade it in such a way that it all pitches towards the corner of Rossmore and Somerville Ave, with internal areas for infiltration. But we are not, we will make sure that the areas between the fence, that privacy fence, and the rest of the park is actually pitched towards the park and not towards your property.
So when we were looking at the elevation plans, it looks like I'm sorry, this middle section here, you guys call that the living room, I believe?
Yeah, the dining room.
Oh, dining room.
Yep.
I mean, it looked like that was like 4 feet above the sidewalk grade.
Yeah, close your eyes if you get seasick.
Okay, well, this is cutting to the north.
Yeah,
So here we're looking at the relationship of the living room to the property to the north. And I'm gonna flip again. Sorry, bear with me. This is the
There it is.
highest, this is the highest room.
If you
And
see
so
it,
this is the area of concern that you're raising.
So
Yeah.
we'll need to
Oh,
fix
that's a
that.
slope that comes down.
Yeah.
All the water and all the debris and everything is just gonna come up against that fence, right up the bottom of the fence. And then right onto my front, and then right onto
We'll, when we get into the micrograding of this, we can definitely fix that. The intention is not to pitch anything towards your property.
Awesome, awesome. And then, like you guys, you get a lot of trees. And I'm not against trees, I'm just against them overgrowing and, up against the side of the house all the time. So along that edge, you guys, I forget what you have like some smaller trees in there that you could put along that edge.
Sorry,
The
what?
west, are you talking about the west side? So this side?
Yeah. Like the flower trees, I think you guys call them, they're just small trees. Those are actually really beautiful trees.
So the only place we have trees are in the go up a slide. So we are showing trees in these areas that are cut out. So they are not up against the property edge nor the privacy fence.
So if this was, the
This
center,
is a 20, yeah,
the center of that tree to the privacy fence, what's the distance?
10 feet,
10 feet.
around 10 feet.
So you're telling me that the tree that you're gonna put there is not gonna grow more than 10 feet to the left and come and hit the house?
Philip, we plant trees in a lot of our parks, and we have tree maintenance programs to kind of deal with these concerns about the trees. I think our trees are going to be placed in a way that kind of create shade over the space, and we can look at ways to prune these trees, but setting it back about 10, 12 feet is a substantial amount to prevent it from growing in and over your property.
Where this is such a small space and you have these trees already all overlapping each other, I mean, there's really only 2 trees that become an issue for me. Right? And,
So yeah, we can consider smaller. We can look at, I think we're happy to look into smaller trees that won't have a wide, also the habit of the tree makes a difference. So if you choose a tree that's more columnar and more vertical, it really won't spread wide. So I think we've heard, you've been clear on this from the beginning, and we hear you. And so I think we will be sensitive to your concerns about the spread of the tree branches over your property when we select the species for those areas and when we place them, so that we won't get too close. I think that's
awesome.
Thank you, Leah.
Because-
Philip, I do want to allow time for other people to speak. So I am just going to ask
Sure.
that if anyone else has any other questions or comments, please raise your hand and we will just go around the room, and then we can allow for second comments.
John, there's a question from Mike regarding the trees and the tree lawn on Rossmore.
My apologies. I thought that was the same
No,
comment. Sorry about that. All right, let me.
But I mean, I could jump in here, but
Could I just read out the question for the public to hear? So could the larger trees along Rossmore be conifers instead? That way there is still a noise and visual barrier in outside of the summer months, especially considering that the area will be well lit. With snow on the ground, it may light up the adjacent houses.
Do you all ever plant evergreen trees in a tree lawn? That would be a question I have, because some municipalities, as a rule, do not put evergreen trees as a street tree.
I'm trying to think of any location where I've seen a evergreen street tree, and I don't believe so. I would have to speak with our arborist to where they can make that final
So
determination.
Mike, I'll say this, and again, I'm not going to speak for the city of Somerville, but we work in a lot of municipalities and typically it's not. And I also I'm on the tree commission for the city that I live in. We typically don't use evergreen trees in a tree lawn. And the reason for that is because conifers typically are cone shaped. That's why they're called conifers. And what ends up happening is that they grow out wide at their bases and stay narrow at the top. And that becomes an issue with access on sidewalks, access for parking. So Leah, if you have a cursor in on this, if you were to say, show what a conifer would do, a conifer would start to grow out at the bottom and impede both the parking and the walking. And so that's a reason why we wouldn't do it as a street tree. They typically are also, for the most part, evergreen trees are not tolerant of salt spray. And so again, I won't say that it's a rule for the city of Somerville because I can't speak for them, but I know that it's a rule in the city that I live in that we do not do that. I mean, I get your point, and we're trying to add in layers so that there are, that there are these visual buffers for you. And even though, snow, I guess I get your point that snow will be reflective in the winter. We're going to study this lighting plan pretty carefully because while we want to make sure the space is well lit, we obviously don't want to overlight it. So we are going to be thinking about this. And it's certainly, that's another level of detail. And I think we can start to think about it, but I would strongly say no to the conifers.
And I actually have a confirmation of that. No, we do not plant conifers as street trees. We will work with our arborist to determine the best tree for this location. But due to the reasons of sightlines, salting issues, we don't plant conifers. Perfect. And then Courtney, I see that your hand is raised, so you should be allowed to unmute yourself.
Thanks so much. Thank you to everyone for this process and this really nice presentation. I just am so excited by, what you all have presented. And I really see reflected in this presentation the ideas of the community from the other meetings that I've attended. So I just want to infuse my excitement and my wish for 2025 summer to come more quickly. And also, thanks to the other folks here who are raising good questions that I hadn't thought of. So appreciate all that. Thank you.
Well, it's very nice to hear that. So thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. I guess just to kind of pull out some questions, is there any features of this design that you're really excited about or not so interested in? Or do you feel like the spatial arrangement or anything about this space that you have comments on?
Me?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, yeah. I really like the reconceptualization of the 3 rooms and how they function from last time to this time. And I like, the way that you all have talked about the kind of brick rug options and just the kind of movable furniture, the stationary furniture, and just the ideas in each of the 3. I suppose my own excitement would be if there was like a hammock stand in there somewhere, but I understand that that's also not a prevalent comment from others in the community, and that's okay. But I did want to say just one other quick thing, which was to echo and lift up some of the comments about perhaps more trash cans. Even if there were like 3 big bellies surrounding the park, I totally get the reasons why they might not be able to go in. But one of the things I've noticed about big belly trash cans around Union Square is that in the spaces that people love, and I think people will love the space, those trash cans fill up and overflow pretty easily. So I would very much welcome if we could have 3 instead of 2. Those are some more thoughts for what they're worth. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Now I'm just going to read one additional comment and then we'll go back to the raised hands. So Mike then asked, thanks for the explanation about the trees. That makes sense. We have concern regarding rust, fungal issues with certain species of foliage. We have serviceberry trees that for the first time experience rust. Could such species be avoided in the park? The rust has rendered all of our fruit trees in, all of the fruit trees in our, I can't read today. All of the fruit in our trees inedible. There we go. And then you also said like, to like the decorative pavers.
So Mike, you so you are familiar with the what's called cedar apple rust, which also affects other things besides apples. It's things that are in the apple family. And so serviceberry, there are other trees too. So what it means to us is that we're glad that you've actually raised this issue, because now we understand that there is that fungus in the neighborhood. Sometimes we just don't know. And what we do to prevent that is basically the apple trees or the serviceberry, the apple family trees, and a host juniper plant will pass the fungus back and forth. And the only time you know that the fungus is there is when the apple species gets sick. But now and it doesn't affect the juniper at all. So, but now that we know that that exists in the neighborhood, we will choose our flowering trees we will not select trees that are in the apple family, because we would have to treat every single juniper in the neighborhood in order to make sure that it doesn't happen. So thank you for calling that to our attention. It limits the palette. It's not horrible. We deal with this all the time, but it's the best thing is to know that it actually exists. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And then I'll go back to the hands. Philip, you should be allowed to speak.
Going back to some of the park furniture, the wall seats, I mean, to me, it just looks like an afterthought. It doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing. Just a piece of metal sitting on top of what I'm assuming is going to be a nice wall and a beautiful walkway. I don't know if something maybe could be built in out of brick on the wall where people sit in versus bolting down on top of a bench on top of a wall. Aesthetically is my thought on that. And then, it's great that you guys took a lot of concern to the neighbors across from Rossmore, because they have a lot of distance between the park, the street, and then their property. Unlike the west and the northbound abutting properties only giving 10 feet to those sitting areas, just inviting people into people's bedrooms and living rooms. I understand it's a small space, but I've always wanted to see that kind of pulled more than 10 feet, for the sake of conversation. I understand the park will be closed at nighttime, but during the day, it's just as important as nighttime. Yeah, looks beautiful. I do like it. The lighting plan to me is not that bad. I like the ballad lights along the edge and pedestrian light poles in the center. I think that will kind of brighten up the space at nighttime so you can see in it. But I don't think that will be blinding. And putting light into all the windows around, given all the trees that are going to be there. And lastly, my other concern is there a slide of what the Rossmore entrance of the park looks like up against that north property? Because there's a driveway right there. And I mean, the last thing we want is people congregating as we're trying to come in and out of the driveway, potentially hit somebody running out of the park, you know.
Yeah, the opening there is pretty narrow. So
Okay, it looks like you did pull it away. What's that?
Yeah.
20 feet or something? It looks like maybe.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Okay. Awesome. I was just wondering what that looked like.
okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, and I'm not seeing any other hands raised or comments in the chat. So I invite you to raise your hand or put any additional comments in the chat that we're happy to answer. And I'm not really seeing any. Oh, Mike said the big dollar trash cans can seem to attract posters and graffiti. Thoughts on this? I believe that we can it's surfaced with some material that makes graffiti easily removable from it. There's also panels and other pieces to kind of replace parts if needed. Graffiti is something that we see a lot, and we're able to deal with it with different ways of removing it. Not seeing any other hands raised. Just give people a second. Alrighty, so I think we can kind of move to our community process slide and next steps. I can kind of go over what's going to happen next.
Hey, close your eyes so you don't get dizzy while I flip. Can I? Here we go.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Uh,
Okay, perfect. So I just kind of wanted to go over what we've done so far and where we're heading to next. So we're kind of wrapping up the community process that involved the listening session that myself and city staff held in early August before the designers were on board. We heard some wonderful comments and kind of started to shape what we were expecting from this space and what the community wanted from this space. Then we moved into the first community meeting that was in mid-October, where we brought on the designers. They presented some site analysis and started to gauge your opinions about which direction we're moving this space in. Then we held a few drop-in listening sessions on site, which were super amazing. We had more than 30 people attend the 3 different listening sessions. It was a great way to meet the community, have neighbors meet each other, and get some really good ideas from that. We then went into our second community meeting that was in early November, where we started to refine our all of the knowledge that we collected and refine it into a few schematic designs. And then this third community meeting where we brought back one refined schematic design this late November. So next slide, please. So I just wanted to give everyone a huge thank you for all of you for attending these meetings, coming to the listening sessions, sending me emails. Throughout this whole process, I've spoken to more than 75 people about this space and really got some great input about what you want from this space. This was a wonderfully robust community process. And now we're going to step into the design development process. So this is where our design team is going to take this schematic design and really push it through a full design so that we can put this project out to bid and out to construction. So what they'll be doing is creating a set of plans, a set of details and specifications that we can use to actually construct the project and bid it properly. Then we'll start the construction in the spring or summer of next year, and then hopefully have the park open by summer of 2025. So that's the timeline for this project. And then next slide, please. And then I just always wanted to, I'm always available to reach out to. You can find more information on the Summer Voice page that is going to be updated all the time as more information comes out, just to keep you all updated about the project. Our Somerville Instagram page is really helpful for finding out about different events that are coming up. And then I'm always happy to receive your phone calls and emails. My email is listed there below, but you can also find my email and my phone number on our Summer Voice website. And with that, I just wanted to thank the design team and thank you all for coming to this meeting.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate all your
Thanks.
comments.
Thank you much.
Thank you all.